we're gonna keep it about Caitlin. I did just talk to Steph, which is interesting. They're doing it next year, Steph versus Sabrina, but I think they might add. Not that Steph told me this, but there's been talks about adding a Caitlin and then adding another guy from the league.
You gotta add Damian Lillard, bro.
Thank you. I said the same exact thing. Welcome back to another episode of Point Forward. This is Andre Iguodala back with my man Evan Turner. Before we kick things off, make sure y'all subscribe to Point Forward wherever you listen to your podcast, and please be sure to follow us on all our social platforms at Point Forward. This whole month, we are celebrating Women's History Month, so we got to make sure we cover some of the biggest names, not only in women's sports, but sports in general. Caitlin Clark, of course, has her own economy. She's killing it. There was an amazing article that I was reading about, the ticket sales for the Indiana Fever. We'll dive into that a little bit. Also, we continue to discuss the MVP race for the NBA. It's as hot as ever. It's a close finish to the end. You got so many guys that we've been talking about. Jokic, Shea, of course. Jason Tatum's flying under the radar, so we'll dive into that. Also, the NFL Combine just passed, and NFL Draft is not too far away. It's a must. We cover American football's future stars, as we've seen a kid run a 4.21 40, which is insane. And lastly, our guest for the pod this week is Mr. Mitty himself, Shaun Livingston. Shaun and I go all the way back to 11 years old, where I never forget, I was in Lincoln, Illinois, the Lincoln Rail Splitters, not from He Got Game, but the one in Illinois. Mr. Brian Cook, his father, Mr. Norman Cook, their city. And we saw this skinny kid with Iverson braids doing the behind and back between the leg dribble, as he used to just dribble all the time. And he gave us a lot of problems. And we had our battles for the next decade or so. And then being in the same draft was just wonderful to have a great conversation with S. Dot. And E.T., of course, is one of his favorite players of all time. Looked up to him, idolized him growing up.
Yeah, for sure. That was a cool conversation. Y'all took it all the way back to 11 years old. I thought that was like a cool combo for like the fly on the wall. I'm like, damn, look how small the world is, but then like y'all grew up winning championships together. Like that's when you're a kid, it's like a movie. You know what I mean? When you watch everything's like, no, he's better than him. He's better than him. And it's like, before you know it, we on the same bench, powering some of the biggest superstars. I thought that was a dope conversation. And, even with Shaun Livingston, he's so cool, such a good dude. But like the truth, bro, he was unbelievable. One of my favorite pictures ever is walking into the arena. I think you're on my right and Shaun's on my left. Yeah, that was like a thing. I was like, man, I made it for sure. So
we got to get that frame.
Yeah, we will. I think it's in my bathroom, actually.
Oh, damn. Oh, yeah. I saw it.
Yeah.
Point Forward is sponsored by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Point Forward.
E.T., we've had some conversations about Pistol Pete in the past and how he averaged 37 shots a game, and he shot 18 free throws a game, and that's how he got to 43 points a game. So we've had, this is what I want people to know. We are very critical of the game of basketball. So we will talk about any and every creed in any and every generation. So it's not skewed towards, we may not like something that happened a long time ago. We'll also speak to something we don't happen in present day game. We'll also speak to our errors and the things that we didn't like. So in saying all that, Pistol Pete was a once in a generation talent, and he had a record we thought would never be broken. And there's an opportunity that it could be broken 2 times in the same decade. And it's coming. We're speaking about Women's History Month. Yes, ladies and gents, I hate to be the one to put the ketchup in your spaghetti, but we wouldn't be living by our title of Point Forward if we didn't put y'all on game and let y'all know how we're going to forecast all of this record-breaking that's happening within the next half decade, next 5 years. So, E.T., we had a pretty cool article A Medium article released February 26th of this year projected Caitlin Clark will finish her career with around 3,744 points based off her analytical numbers through her college career. Caitlin averaged 26.6 points per game as a freshman. And we're talking about the record being broken by Caitlin. But the other female we're talking about is Juju Watkins from USC, who's averaging over 28 points per game with less than a month remaining. And in the last month, she's been averaging 31.2 points per game compared to Caitlin's current season average of 32.2 points per game. So Juju is currently projected to finish her freshman year with 818 points, which in comparison to Caitlin Clark's freshman year of 799 points. And so we're talking about this record being broken, and this moment that Caitlin is having. E.T., that was a dope Nike ad we saw where Caitlin is shoot. Oh, tell us about this ad Nike did.
In the beautiful city of Iowa City, Iowa, they did a Nike ad once she broke the record. So it's a picture of her shooting on a building across the street. And it's like just a big old like picture of her shooting a jumper, and then literally like a half block down, it's a picture of the rim. And it's saying, "This was never a long shot." I think that's a wavy ad. I feel like that is pretty crazy. I was like, damn, if you're not a Caitlin Clark fan, you gotta be a Caitlin. Like, if Nike's doing it, it's crazy. You know what I mean?
We're gonna keep this about Caitlin, because what went off in my mind is I felt like they had this for Steph, but they lost him. We're gonna keep it about Caitlin. I did just talk to Steph, which is interesting. They're doing it next year. Steph versus Sabrina, but I think they might add that. Not that Steph told me this, but there's been talks about adding a Caitlin and then adding another guy from the league.
You gotta add Damian Lillard, bro.
Thank you. I said the same exact thing.
When you break that, I think it's gonna be lit. It's super cool that she's leaving. Yeah. It's just even crazier when you break it down. How the women's game is going. Right. We're getting to this point now where like the momentum is super crazy. You're following up with like heavy hitter with heavy hitter. We're going back into it and saying like, yo, Caitlin just broke Pistol Pete's like 56-year record. And now we're about to have a guard that's only 18 still out of South Carolina, Juju Watkins, about to come up and be able to do the same thing. I feel like women's sports is just OD for taking over right now. I was just saying, like, I'm kind of shocked. Juju's averaging 28, G. Again, she's probably going to put up 4,000 points.
And we're going to take a big portion of one of these episodes this month to speak to how Juju's game is different to me. Because Juju can shoot it, but Judy's midi and Juju being able to get to a spot in a shot, it's the longevity of her game. We speak to that a lot. How long can your game last? Like, you can't keep Juju. You can't run her off the line. She get into her spots. She can get to the rack. She's strong. She got a crazy ISO game. We talk about her mellow presence on the ISO, on the wings, and she's going to learn how to play in the post. Like, it's dangerous. It's looking very, very dangerous.
And I was looking because I look how great Caitlin is right now. But even with Juju, I remember my friend Anna saying like, "Oh, I heard she could probably play in the league now." And I was like, "But there's no way a 17-year-old girl can play in the WNBA." If you're looking how she's scoring at this point, dog, it's almost like should she stay in college?
Yeah,
she's put up 50, 40, 40, 50. She didn't turn 19. She didn't turn 19 until the summer, bro.
That's crazy.
And like. When she killed the little girl, Paul, from the point guard from Colorado, she was like the female Pat Beverly. She gave her 42 on the road, dog. And I'm talking about, like, this is the best. Besides Hannah Hidalgo, I was like, bro, old girl is one of the better defenders in the country. I'm talking about in her mid. They gave her 42.
That's a hell of a comparison.
So with the article from with the article earlier that we were talking about, they were saying the reason why they believe that Caitlin record could be beaten by Juju Watkins within 2027 is because compared to her freshman numbers, if she scored the exact same every single year and didn't even get better by the numbers, she would legit probably outbeat her. I think she'll fall 220 points short, and then all she needs is like postseason games, and that'll take like 8 or 9 games over a 4-year period. Yeah,
I saw that.
Better, yeah, if she don't get better, so she's averaging 28 right now. If she doesn't get better, she'll finish her 4 years down 220 points. If she does get better like Caitlin did, and I think they're saying Caitlin's points each year rose like by 3%, she'll probably, finish her, her few years with only needing like 3 or 4 more games or play, postseason games to really break it. That's crazy, bro.
Does Caitlin have a year of eligibility left too?
Yeah, but she decided to leave. So.
Right. So I'm thinking about that as well. And will Juju leave early? And I just found this out. USC has the best incoming class next year, recruiting class, female basketball. So they got 3 like phenoms coming in. Well, so I'm asking because Caitlin's team may be tailored to Caitlin putting up 40, 50. But when you add in All-Americans, you add in superstars, I'm talking about 1 class removed, not 1 or 2 classes behind you, not like you're a junior and there's freshmen or, you're a senior and there's sophomore and freshmen. It's like we're talking about Juju being a sophomore and she got some superstars as freshmen. How does that change your game to win as well? Do you score less to win a championship? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just thinking about all that.
I know that's real, but I think also, too, that's saying, like, less on the championship. They're top 10. You feel me? Like, right now. So I think she's in that ballpark. I think one thing that occurs is there's a show and then there's alphas. To show up and be like, well, that girl averaging 28 going to have to give us the rock. It's like, nah, G, just set the screen. Right, okay. Get to the back of the bus. I'm going to give y'all headphones and free Nike shoes at Christmas. Let me hit my NIL bonuses. You know what I mean?
NIL ball, I like
straight up. So about such and such coming in. Like, I averaged 30. I've been averaging 30. Bro, I feel you, but no, she's like that.
No, for sure. So, DraftKings by the numbers. Hypothetical odds from DraftKings. Question is, will Juju Watkins break Caitlin Clark's all-time scoring record before she finishes college? The odds are yes is plus 300, and a no is at a minus 360, which is the favorite on the odds. Most folks are saying, no, she won't break the record. So this is interesting.
I like that bet. I would bet like 2,000 on women's sports. I can use that in any argument if I get called sexist. It's like, bro, I just bet $5,000 of my daughter's money on Juju Watkins' success. You know how long it took me to find a bookie to bet? No,
no, I knew that. Besides the ladder, the try at the very end, I thought that was a pretty dope. That was pretty dope.
Take that out.
Point. Forward.
Get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 back in a bonus bet. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code POINTFORWARD. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code POINTFORWARD. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. One no-sweat bet per new customer. Issued as one bonus bet on amount of initial losing bet. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/promos for deposit, wagering, and eligibility restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources.
Point. Forward.
The MVP race, E.T. Speaking of the MVP race, what criteria should matter in terms of, how we're voting for this? We've already spoken on the 65-game All-NBA situation that we're coming into. But this MVP race has gotten very, very close at the end, at the finish line. And we've seen this a couple of times. I remember when Jermaine O'Neal, when I watched the Malice in the Palace doc, he was like 4th in MVP race one year. Like, that's how good the year he was having. It kind of flew under the radar. And, you hate to see that happen. You hate that Shaq only has one MVP. You hate that Kobe only has one MVP. And then, we'll speak about LeBron and how many times he possibly should have the MVP. He should have won it more times. So this year, as we've been saying, race is closer than ever. A lot of guys are worthy, putting together some timeless seasons. It's making see early that it's impossible for the media to make a bad decision, which is a good thing. And with the season winding down and things getting so tight, we want to weigh in as media members on who we think is getting ready to hoist the MVP award.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because, obviously last week, I think it was like a Friday or something, Tatum and Luka Doncic went head-to-head.
Yes.
And they both 3 games. Obviously, the Celtics, beat the shit out the Mavericks, but Luka still had his usual 80, 80, and 80. I think he really realistically had like 37, 14, and like 12, like the Luka package. And Tatum also had like 32 himself. I think one thing that occurs, and I follow a lot of, Boston media, they kind of used the matchup differential. And they were like, look, matching up, Tatum's 2-0. Look at their numbers. Like, you know what I'm saying? Tatum's plus, 45 in this matchup, all this good stuff. But it's like, no matter what, you might leave this game with a backhanded compliment towards Tatum for being like, he just has a better team. It's like, no, Tatum has probably better players, but he's still averaging 30 a night. While getting his, while getting his work done. I think one stat said, a true stat says, Tatum's true shooting percentage is 60.4%. Only 3 players in league history, Karl Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, have averaged 27 points or more, 8+ rebounds, and 4 assists, while shooting that percentage and having a win percentage of 75% or better.
Now,
That's
was that
crazy.
was that Karl Malone or Moses Malone? That's what I couldn't figure out.
Oh, it might be Moses. If that's
Moses was cold.
Either or, pocket Malone. Pocket Malone.
Yeah, I like
Malone.
it. I like it.
That's a bar. And when you sit in there, you like, damn, G. If I put in all that work, I won't be an MVP. What's wavier than having your job done by the 3rd quarter? It's not. This is 4th straight year having the best team. You know what I mean? And like, I understand where they're coming from, and just being like, all right, I'm gonna get knocked because Danny Ainge drafted well, and me and Jaylen Brown got better.
And that's, we just spoke about Caitlin Clark and Juju Watkins, and then Juju getting some top freshmen in. And so Juju can still have an efficient 30. That's what Tatum's doing. Like, he's got a squad. He's got a squad, but he's so efficient. Like, I went to the Warriors-Celtics game this past Sunday, the thrashing. And Tatum didn't score in the first quarter.
Boom.
I think he still ended up with like 23 and a half or something like that. It was something crazy. He ended up the game with 20. He ended up with 20-something, right? But he only played like not even a half. And so for him to be so efficient, he had a big second quarter while extending the lead. Is just impressive to see. Now, Luka, on the other hand, he scored 25+ in 9 straight games. Crazy highlights, massive numbers. Like you said, the typical Luka line, 80, 80, and 80. I think I was talking to you when you told me, I think you said Damian Lillard said it. One thing about Luka, he going to get his team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Regardless who on the roster. And I said, whoa. And for him to be that young and in the West, this is still the real West, there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, the only reason why they didn't get his team in the playoffs last year is because they didn't want to.
That's a bar.
No, they didn't want to. Like, man, let's try to position ourselves the best for that pick. Yeah. But like when you even say with Luka and like the talent he has, it's like, I mean, that's why we're bringing this up, bro, because it's 4 players that are doing something off the wall, bro. And Luka's like, bro, he's going crazy. But obviously we talked about like Jokic, the reigning MVP. People might want to give him, his 3rd MVP. But I'm in this position right now, I'm rooting for Tatum, but I might have to give it to 88 Mike, the dude hooping like 88 Mike, bro, which is SGA, bro. Woo! That boy doing 31. Bro, listen to his numbers, G. 31 points per game, damn near 6 rebounds, 6.5 assists, two steals. He's a steals leader.
I didn't realize that.
2 steals per game, and he's shooting 55, 38, 88. So he's basically shooting 90, 50, 40. When you compare that to Steph's MVP year in 2016, dog, Steph's shit was 30 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, damn near 7 assists, 2 steals per game. He shot 50, 90, 40, typical Steph, golden child. But when you're like comparing those two numbers, and you're taking the accountability of like what SGA is doing right now. Last year, that team was 40-42.
Yeah.
Now they're a top 2 or 3 team in the West.
Yeah.
With a bunch of little ass kids.
And you can't stop him from scoring 30.
Feel like
and you can't stop him from scoring 30.
Yeah, bro. And he's had 30 like 40 something times already. And like when I'm saying to that sake, and obviously I'm a big Tatum fan, but it's like, yo, there's no way SGA should be doing it. Or OKC should be at this level or in that playing position. I love like what everybody else is doing, and of course, Jokic has been dominant, but I think like that's the real conversation to have, especially comparing it to Steph Curry's 2016 year. And that was a unanimous, wasn't it?
That was unanimous. I mean, we broke the wins record. I just saw Joe Lacob. He had a 73 hat on, the number 73. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that. But Steph did a whole lot of stuff. He did so much stuff we forgot, like all the stuff he did.
Yeah, we're going to use him later for That's a Bar. Pause.
Looking forward to it.
Looking forward.
Point. Forward.
We have a great guest, amazing guest, NBA champion, original point forward, 6'7" point guard. One of my favorite players growing up. Back in the day, I had 2 haircuts. I had the short, even all around, or I had the Shaun Livingston muffin top. That's how much this guy was one of my favorite players. And definitely looking forward to it. But, without further ado, let's bring in a living legend, is Shaun Livingston. Thanks for coming on the show, Shaun. How you doing?
Appreciate y'all brothers having me on. Illinois' finest.
I like to tell people when I die, I know who my pallbearers are going to be. So my wife said I can't get buried, so y'all can I'm going to have handles coming off my, what's it called? Your ashes go in. What's that thing called?
Urn?
Urn, yeah. So y'all can hold the urn going, like, during the proceedings. So, that's that we go all the way back. I'm serious about the pallbearer thing as well, but we go all the way back to, I don't know if I ever told this story. Have I ever told a story when we were in Lincoln, Illinois, home of Brian Cook? Folks may not remember Brian Cook, but B. Cook was that dude.
Brian Cook.
But, we were like 11 years old, 12 years old, and it was a 12U tournament, and there was 2 teams from Peoria there, and we were the team from Springfield, and one of the Peoria teams we can beat, but we couldn't beat this other team, and they had this lanky, long dude that was handling the rock, and he was nice, and when we found out he was younger than us, man, we was scared to death. Like, this dude we got to see for the rest of our for the rest of our lives. And
I remember it, man, went back to the Gus Macker. See, I don't think you remember coming through Peoria. And the Gus Macker, we had the 3-on-3 tournaments. And this one, you might have been probably 12 years old. And you was long and like talking about Mildred. Like, this is before the growth spurt, before you was jumping over people. And I just remember you coming through Peoria. You had all your guys. And the Gus Macker was like, that was like the big 3-on-3 tournament. Peoria is like one of the biggest cities for that tournament.
Yeah.
And this is when I thought I was hard, gang banging and all that stuff, man. I remember that was like my first introduction to Andre Iguodala. I was like, man, that's okay. Them boys could play. They could play. That was my first intro.
I want to take it back there because I don't think people understand what basketball meant to Central Illinois. And so just kind of give me your upbringing, talking about the Peoria Manual teams, the Peoria Central teams. E.T., you go all the way back to Hoop Dreams. Howard Nathan from Peoria was in.
Lefty.
They were in the Hoop Dreams.
Yeah,
and,
that's crazy.
Shaun, I want you to talk to us about, the basketball community that you grew up in and kind of how it shaped, how you grew into, being a legend, how you grew into, being a fundamentally sound player, not having any weaknesses, and kind of how it shaped you.
Man, well, I did have one weakness, and that was because watching that damn N1, because that was our era.
Yes,
that was our era. It was, I just remember, so the 90s was like the golden era of basketball in Peoria, Illinois. even going further back, we had some hoopers that came out of Peoria in the 70s and 80s. That was like my dad's era. And I remember my dad always, just telling me the old stories about these old hoopers that I didn't know about. I'm like, man, who's these old guys? Like, I'm coming up in the 90s, and Howard Nathan is the name, right? And then Hoop Dream comes out, and I just remember watching that movie, and I was like, damn, he from where I'm from, like it's a national movie. And then from there, Manuel just went into their runs. You talk about you had Sergio McClain, Marcus Griffin, Frank Williams. Frank Williams is my idol. Yeah. Like when I was coming up and growing up, like I idolized this dude. And you talk about like the best runs was outside. This is when people still played outside. Boy, get outside! Don't come back in until the street lights come on. Like, you better not be shutting that door, slamming that door, right? So we outside riding bikes, riding down to the playground. Everybody lined up around the fence. If you hooping, you watching the main runs. Frank was, he was king of the court. And I just remember watching the Manual Central games. Those were the two rivals coming up. And Central, at the time, they had A.J. Guyton. A.J. Guyton played in the league, has some burn with the Bulls, went to IU, right? So, these were legendary games that were held at Bradley University at the Fieldhouse at the time. And my dad taking me to those games, watching them. And so, man, I just remember being a kid. And, like, the Bulls was obviously, they had their run, right? We all grew up in Illinois. And the Bulls was, they was bigger than life. But I was so locked into Frank, Serge, Ivan Watson, Willie Coleman, Brandon Hughes played at Michigan. Like, these guys was legends to me. And so, man, I was just like, I want to play at the Fieldhouse one day. I didn't really know anything about the NBA, but I'm like, I want to play at the Fieldhouse. By me watching those guys, studying, mimicking those guys, watching N1, had that ball wherever I went, dribbling it, like in the grocery store, on the bike, like that was everything. And it just became repetition.
How were you able to remain a point forward? You look a lot of times as a youth, you're one of the tallest people on the team. So a bunch of us were sometimes stuck with playing in the post. Your whole life, you're able to hold the ball, handle the rock and really be like the next big point guard since Magic Johnson. How were you able to really stay in that form and stay true to yourself, especially when you're kind of like an alien, quote unquote, and
Yeah. Man, Pistol Pete. Watching the Maravich, The Pistol, that movie, like, man, that was one of my favorite movies, man. Just,
wow.
Just, watching, all the tricks he was doing. Like, I watch that movie, go outside, try to do what he was doing, spin the ball on my finger, get on the bike, try to ride the bike.
Did you try dribble in the car?
Okay.
He used to try to dribble in the back seat of the car with his dad. You ever tried that?
Man, I told my dad, went to the parking lot one time, like, hey, man, slow down, let me... my dad was like, all right, open the door. It's like, just trying all type of goofy things, man. But it was more than anything, Pistol Pete, Magic Johnson. I don't know if y'all remember Magic and Bird had those like instructional tapes that came out. I was watching those. And Penny Hardaway. Mm-hmm. Penny was my favorite player. Like he was again, I didn't watch a lot of NBA, but like when I saw Penny, man, and then obviously you had a little Penny that came out with the commercials. I was like, yo, that's who I want to be like. So watching all these big guards, still handle the rock, like I was mesmerized.
Yeah. Well, you speed up, through your high school career, through your journey, and you go from, being one of the top players in Peoria to being one of the top players in the country and one of the top prospects in the world. Take us back to what it was like trying to decide between a legendary program like Duke and being coached by a legend like Coach K or going straight to the NBA. What was that like to really understand it and be like, yo, I might be able to get drafted, but then also trying to weigh the pros and cons on if you're ready or not, because you're really the first from your area to be able to do that.
Yeah. So for me, it was, like I remember going on my visits. I Andre Iguodala. Andre was my tour guide in Arizona. Great visit, by the way.
I heard about that
Probably my
visit.
best
I heard
visit.
you. Yeah, I heard you're supposed to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild. We ain't got to get into all that.
That was the only time I went full out. Like, I saw Arizona that I never saw. So I was like, dang, this dude, Shaun Livingston is that dude. Because I've gotten places that I never been before because he was with me.
That's what Dre said. He's like, bro, there's so much stuff going on that you never understood. He's like, bro, I had no clue there was this access. He's like, that's how good you knew Shaun Livingston was, and we already had top point guards. He's like, bro, this is crazy.
Great visit. I was ready. I was ready to commit right there. I was ready. I was ready. Like, but then that's when I figured out. Man, I'm like, who is Salim Stoudemire? I'm like, that dude right there was he was cold. Salim was cold. Playing against him and pick up. You know, I went back, told all my boys, like, yo, it's a dude named Salim Stoudemire. But did all my visits, Arizona, Duke, Illinois, North Carolina. I did that one. And, man, I just, you know, at the time I made the decision to go to Duke. It was obviously very unpopular. And, you know, I was a target for that back at the crib. Just being in Illinois, right? With the pipeline, all the guys from Peoria going to Illinois. Cheers, Howard at the time. Was
Yeah, that's
like
wild.
Big brother, you know.
Bogus, Shaun.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So, right. That was a great visit. That was a great visit. Yeah. So, man, I just felt like, man, listen, I was 150 pounds soaking wet, right? Like, at the time, I had all this skill, I had all this flair, I had an IQ for the game, but, you know, I was physically weak. You see what I'm saying? So, at the Big Ten, I'm like, man, I'm going to get beat up, right? They playing this, you know, this half-court style basketball. I already know they're going to try to throw 100 pounds on me when I get there. You know, like, I'm going to have a bad back. You know, like, I'm going to be in there just, you know, like, playing to my weaknesses. So I'm like, no, I got to get up and down, you know? So for me, it was like, all right, ACC, Pac-12. So ended up going to Duke. And then the whole year, you know, scouts coming to the game. John Paxson, you know, Chris Mullin, you know, at the time he was the GM for Golden State Warriors. And so, you know, going through that whole process, I'm like, damn, they really here. Like, this is really a possibility. So we go through, you know, finish the season out, playing the All-American games, finish that out. You know, and then at the time, it's like, damn, I really got a shot. Like, you know, see the mock drafts, everything else. I'm skipping school the last Friday, going up to Grover, you know, playing at Attack, you know, start to work out, do that whole nine. So it's becoming real. And then right at the last minute, did a workout, 30 GMs. You know, Grover did it for me, acting as kind of like a pseudo agent. He's like, look, man, you're not going any lower than 6, guaranteed. Like, it's locked in. I'm like, damn, I got to call Coach K. And that was one of the hardest calls ever, you know, at 18, but got through it, and it was just like, all right, cool. We rocking out, and that's how it happened.
All right, you went drafted number 4 to the Clippers. Now, obviously, you had a couple of years. You're playing alongside Sam Cassell. They tried to play you as shooting guard a little bit. By the time your third year hit, you were able to hit some strides, but the knee injury occurred. Can you take us back to that day? And, you know, obviously, I think you're still like 21 years old. I know that shit hurt, but what was the feelings and vibes like afterwards, because you thought you had to get your leg amputated, right?
Yeah, it was wild, bro. Like, I really didn't think I did much to it because I'd already got hurt before. Like, I dislocated my other kneecap. So I was like, I'm in the hospital eating Popeyes. You know, like, I think
that's a positive thing.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm good.
Rich, you straight.
Like, I'm good. Like, yeah, like,
in LA, you like, I'm good.
Like, I'm good. Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm straight. Like, I'm be all right. So, but it was just the news when they came in and told me, like, all right, we got to do these blood tests. And if you rupture it, you know, there's an artery in the back of your leg. like because of the trauma, it ruptured this artery. There's a chance, we may have to amputate your leg. And when I heard that, I remember just, how you remember certain things in life where trauma happened. You're like, yo, I remember exactly what I was doing, what I was wearing. Like, I remember, like, what I was eating, what I ordered, the whole night, what I had to drink. I'm like, yo, man, this is my life right now. Like, yo, my leg, like, basketball, one thing, but my leg, hold on. Like, my life finna change. So I just remember hearing that, and then just that whole night, I couldn't sleep because I was just waiting on that test, get that test back. And finally, when I got the test back, everything came back okay. I'm like, all right, it's going to be a long journey, uphill climb. I realized, like the situation, how serious it was. But I'm like, all right, at least I got my leg. You see what I'm saying? Like, all right, let's get to it. Let's get to it.
And
that was the mindset.
I want to dive into, people, I don't think the public understand what rehab is like and how long that process is. Even when guys are out 2 to 4 weeks, guys can't wait to get back on the court because they don't understand rehab is harder than the game. And so
you really do cardio.
I want to know about your rehab. Yeah. I want to know about that process. And did you learn something about yourself when you had to go through it? Because rehab at a young age is a lot different than rehab at an older age. Because when you're older, you just understand it. Like it's just all mental. But at a young age, you don't know when the end's in sight in terms of when you're gonna get back. What was that rehab process like? Daily basis, 7 days a week. What did you learn about yourselves, and what were things that you didn't know that you were a space you were entering that you had to deal with throughout that process?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, man. And just to shine a light on it, it's really you versus you. That's the hardest part about it. Like, we grew up competing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we grew up 101s, 2s, checkup, right? 505, whatever it is you always got somebody across from you that you can measure yourself. So for me, that was the hardest part. And then being able to, my doctor was Dr. James Andrews. Shout out James Andrews, man. Like, he a legend. He worked on some of the greatest. Bo Jackson.
Out of Arkansas, right?
Out of Alabama.
Alabama.
Yep. Birmingham. Yeah, man. When I got the diagnosis back from him, I'm like, Doc, what's the timeline? He couldn't give me an answer. He couldn't give me like a concrete answer. Usually, right? Like, you do a meniscus 4 to 6, like certain things, elbow, shoulder, labor, whatever it is. He was like, it could be 8 months, but it's more likely going to be a year, but it could be longer than a year. Like, I don't know, because honestly, the truth is, Shaun, we've never dealt with this injury like this in basketball. These are more football injuries. These are more, car accidents and skiing type injuries. As far as the trauma, like, I tore 3 ligaments, dislocated, my whole knee, my femur tibia, like the whole 9. So it was like an explosion. So getting to that rehab, man, like, that shit was hell. Because first off, I go through surgery, I'm still leaking, and they wheel you right down to the rehab, from the room straight to physical therapy the next day. So literally the next day, I got staples in my knee. It's leaking. They put you in that little machine where it's trying to bend your leg, right? Forgot what it's called, but I just remember going through that process. Yeah, man, and literally, like, it's like a stick, like damn near I have like a stick with through a pineapple, right? Like that's how my leg was, because I had all this atrophy, muscle atrophy from not doing anything, trying to let the swelling come down. So anyways, it's you versus you every day. And then even as you start to climb, I remember crying for the first time. Like, I didn't cry the whole process, even I got injured. But, like, I remember tearing up and crying and getting on the bike for the first time. So that was like a breakthrough. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, like, I'm coming. Like, I'm climbing the ladder. It's a step, and I just remember going through all the pain and just trying to, bend your leg, bend your knee, get that range of motion, get that flexion. Like I could straighten my legs all the way, which was the big one. Usually you can't straighten your leg. Like if that happens to you, then that's a red flag. But for me, it was getting the range of motion. I had arm scar tissue built up, and then going through that process every day. It's a mental game. It's believing that, like, man, okay, like today I'm watching all this film. Darren Williams, Chris Paul, they killing. They killing. They top, Steve Nash, like all these guards who I was competing against, and now I'm watching them, and I don't know what my trajectory is. I don't know who I'm gonna be as far as like what level, what caliber of player. I'm just trying to get back to the game, to play. And so just the mental, torture of like every day knowing that you're not even about to pick the basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just you going working on your leg, your knee, like that's your finals, that's your playoffs. And that was the hardest part for me going through that process. I paused there.
Yeah, but you think that preps you for the next few journeys because you got hurt in like 07, 08, and you really bounced around the league a little bit for like the next 6 or 7 years. Even you look at it sometimes, you might be signed to a team for a week, wave, traded, wave, this, that, a third. But when I looked at some of like your playing timeline, I'm like, man, this dude is a true fighter. And I wanted to know where you just weren't like, man, you know what, F it. Like, I know I'm talented. I know I'm Shaun Livingston. I know I'm fighting to get back. But even when I used to hear stuff, they're like, yo, he'll never be the same. How were you able to stay locked in and get to the point where when you got back to Brooklyn, obviously you won championships with the Warriors. But I remember at one point with Brooklyn, you were averaging 14, 8, and 7. It's still like dunking the shit out the ball. I remember sitting here being like, people want to play around, but Shaun Livingston is top 10, top 15 point guard. Like, he's going crazy. And then you ended up playing alongside Darren Williams again and trapped right back jumping. How did that feel? Because it seemed like there was in the NBA, they throw you through a loop. How were you able to just stay mentally locked in and continue to fight for your dream and passions? Because it started off ugly, and now people are saying you're a top 5 mid-range shooter of all time, a 4-time NBA champion, and you came out clean.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I honestly, like, I was thinking about this before I called. Like, I want to hear from y'all too on what it's like to be the guy, right, on your respective teams and then have to go to finding a role on a team while keeping your confidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'll run through mine first, and then I want to hear what that's like, right? Because I mean, y'all dived into this before.
No, we talk about it all the time, and I had to remind ET. I was like, bro, stop it. Like, you know who you are, and it's almost as if like you know who you are, you have success, and then for whatever reasons, right or wrong. I mean, I think we both look at our careers. I think we all think the same in terms of we try to take a humble approach, and we're our harshest critics anyway. But I think we all went through circumstances that had nothing to do with us or our abilities or our capabilities of being who we truly could be in the league. And we just rolled with the punches. Whatever was thrown at us, we played in Philly, so you got to roll with the punches. We had a great conversation with Rasheed Wallace. I never knew that he texted E.T. when E.T. was going through it in Philly, like, yo, you know who you are. And he was like, man, I couldn't believe, I didn't know who this was. Like, Rasheed Wallace is texting me. And Rasheed always showed me love, just having to play in that environment. And I'll start for me, when Steve Kerr told me that I had to come off the bench, like, I was like, trade me, to be honest, because I was playing so well.
I remember
that was my first, after my first year with the Warriors. We had a good year. I got hurt in Game 7 of that first round series with the Clippers. I had tore some stuff around my right at the bottom, right above my knee, and my quad tendon that attaches it. And so I had to go through a small procedure. It wasn't a surgery, but I went through a procedure, some bone marrow out my back, and you can hear them cranking, hack, pop, pop. You can hear like the bone in my back. They took bone marrow out, so the blood, so they threw it in my knee to promote the healing. So it was the closest thing to surgery without having to go through surgery. And so that whole summer, that was the first time I had to rehab. So I came back strong, and I never forget I had so much success in training camp with the second squad, which actually worked against me because Steve was like, "Oh,
right,
we got to unlock our second unit gonna be strong." I ain't thinking about that because I'm just trying to kill whoever in front of me. And so this is the best basketball I've been playing in quite some time. Like, I was super confident. And so to hear it come off the bench, I knew what that meant. Like, man, like, this might be the end of my career because they don't appreciate guys coming off the bench. And so I didn't know how to think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just being real. Like, man, I already know what they're saying. Like, it's the down, the decline. You know, this is it. You looking at the end, I got 2-3 years left, and this is my last contract. You know, little did I know that it worked out for the best. And I'll never forget my agent being like, you know, we started off good. He was like, yo, stick through it. Let's see what happens the rest of the year. Like, he saw it. He saw something. I didn't know we were going to win a championship. And you were a part of that. You and I were killing. That's why we wouldn't lose.
You guys had a hell of a second
we always
unit.
beat Steph and them. Yeah, we always beat Steph and them until, like, they decided to practice that day. And, you know, we just couldn't do nothing with them when they got serious. But, you know, we always had success. But for me, like, that was really tough when I got the initial news. And then I had to, you know, you get used to coming off the bench and you knowing Steve putting you in the game. And what Steve likes to say is, Andre, go find the flow. Go find the flow means go out and just pass the ball. It means I ain't going to get no shots. I ain't going to get no feel. I ain't going to get no rhythm. I'm just out here working for other people.
What's that?
Yeah. Go out and then you just shoot set. You know, you prep everything in the back and you bring it out to them and then they get to have all the fun. And so I had to get that through that adjustment. But once we saw the bigger picture, it was like, all right, we winning. And then we knew how to keep ourselves ready. Where we, you know, S. Dot and I talk about it all the time, ET, where, all right, we need like a 4-game stretch a month where it's like, all right, we got to go find our rhythm ourselves.
Yeah.
Because them other 15 games, them other 10 to 12 games this month, we just going to be rebounding and passing. And so we always kept in the back of our minds, like, let's keep a rhythm because when playoffs come, the guys going to need us.
That's real.
What about you, ET? Like, what was it for you? Like, when you had to go through that whole process of finding a role, right, as opposed to being a guy?
It was definitely something unique. You know, obviously when you come in as a top pick, there's always attention on you. You know what I mean? So not only trying to find a role, but find yourself along with, you know, trying to break through and like really lead a team. You know, obviously when we came in, I played behind Dre. So, you know, I had to go in and learn a lot. And when it came down to, I was able to, you know, my third year really get going, but we were kind of towards a rebuilding situation. I think when that occurred, me personally was just more so a battle of who I wanted to be. And, you know, to chop it up, I know like a lot of people, they don't get their way. It's like, no, I don't want to do 3 years, quit and go overseas and go hoop. It was just like, all right, bro, like I want to play the best. I want to play with the best. And the same way where I be happy and I was supposed to be like the next big thing, I got to keep that energy and just make sure I support who the real alpha is, the same way I would want that support. And that's pretty much what I did. And I was just like, bro, I might not be the best, but I know I'm still like a top 6 or 7 rotational player and a top, you know, 150 player in the world. So I wanted to, you know, try to squeeze out as much time as possible. And one thing was just trying to stay afloat. I knew at very least I always say I was going to eat for life. So shout out to overseas, but I just wasn't going overseas. Like, period, point blank. And that wasn't like nothing crazy. It's just like, no, I'm good enough to figure out how to play with the best players in the world. And that was literally, I found like gratitude and, you know, excitement in trying to make the most of adapting my game. That was the first real time I really ever played without the ball and being like, all right, well, how good can I be to affect the team? And, you know, with as corny as it is, sports teaches you a lot of lessons bigger in life. So I had to take that dumbass approach and just be like, all right, let's be mature and let's see where this takes me, as opposed to just being a prima donna with all this money and everything else. But that was pretty much it.
It's hard, though.
No. You want to know what's the toughest part about it? It's not so much you, but the environment around you. I remember Aaron McKee said something. He's like, bro, no matter what occurs, you got to remember who you are. I always go back to the Lion King story when Rafiki's laughing at Simba, and he's like, you stupid fool, you already know who you are. Like, you a king. And you on the wilderness, you on a journey trying to figure it out. It might not be the biggest kingdom, but you're a king of oneself. And I remember, you know, always feeling down about certain situations. And Aaron McKee was just like, you got to comprehend where you're at and make the most of it. But this is Philly. The best story is the story of Rocky, like the comeback story. You know what I mean? Like, not everything's going to start off perfect, but he's like, people appreciate how the fuck you come back. And that was one thing I always remember. Like, by the time I hit my third or fourth year, I was just, at very least, it might not be amazing, but I didn't fucking quit. And that was just me showing myself and being like, my confidence was down, everything about me, like, vulnerable. I wouldn't try to tell somebody, like, yo, I'm really good at basketball. Half these people will laugh. Or even when I would go meet my coaches, they'd be like, bro, I didn't know you were good. So literally trying to, like, formulate all that energy literally by yourself where you're on your own was just like, nah, this is where I became a man and this is where I had to, like, really dive in. But I was just like, nah, like, I'll take a challenge and nobody beating me down in that sense. You know what I mean? And, like, just keep showing up. And I thought, like, the years where I couldn't, you know, going into my third or fourth year where I thought I'd probably stop, I pushed to 10 years. And I thought that was like a battle within a battle that made me, you know, happy about my career.
Nah, because you had a great year at Boston, too. I remember Dre, them teams, we struggled with them teams, right?
Yeah.
And you was, you know, was a big part of that. Like, you know, like, man, being able to switch, right? Like, man, remember him, Avery, out there, Howden, Stephen Clay. Like, it was like, yo, these guys right here.
Yeah, but
we got to get some reps. You know?
But you guys were legit. You just had a great team. I think one thing that occurs during that point where I always talked to Dre about that was super fun and a watch. It was like, man, it was a moment. It was a dynasty. You guys dominated. There was nothing much to talk about. Even when you guys went up, like, to play versus you guys, it was just fun to play and compete. Every game was like an amazing game where you saw some stuff you never would see before. And like I always said, y'all play at a high level in like 4 or 5 different ways, which is like, if you want to score, you can score. If you want to play defense, you can play defense. You want to get physical, get physical. If you want to grind it out to double overtimes, do that. But you guys can really do it. And that's what was fun. And one thing I always appreciate was like, Shaun, you were like one of my favorite players growing up. And Dre, obviously I love you to death. So to see that success in the backcourt was always, in the second unit, always made me happy to be a second unit member and be like, I'm playing on.
No doubt.
We did something.
No doubt.
Yeah, so come off the bench.
Yeah, but when you talk about coming off the bench and you go back into like some of those Golden State Warrior, you know, those Warrior days, and you dive deeper and I'm not wanting to come off the bench, how are you guys able to form together and really make it a thing? Because you both were, you know, even though you averaged 5 or 6 points, your impact made it seem like you guys had a reputation of starters, or you're always on the 6th man of the year awards, or when it came in, they would talk about you guys just as much, not just as much as they talk about Steph or Clay, but it was like, no, this is a unit to really push you ahead and win you games.
Yeah, no, I'll take that. You know, I think that I remember when, you know, Steve asked Dre to come off the bench, and I just remember like how hot this man was. You know, like he was real life. Wanted, you know, he was like, yo, man, trade me, man. Y'all messing up guys' careers, right? And I just remember going through that situation. I was in a different boat, being that I was in and out the league, right? And so, like, we had Dre, we had David Lee.
Oh, yeah, I remember
these guys were all-stars.
Yeah.
They were all-stars. You see what I'm saying? Starters. Dre started every game up until that point. Like, we 10 years in it, right? Yeah. So I just remember going through that situation. But for me, what gave me that confidence is the year before, being in Brooklyn. You got Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Joe Johnson, Darren Williams, right? Like, KG, you know, KG and Paul were a little older, you know, so they were a little on the other side, but they still had that mindset and that mentality. It's like, look, we put on a jersey is to win, right? So, you know, you gonna get in, and you're gonna get in this way. I just remember them putting that battery in my back, you know, like, young fella, you got it. You know, like, don't let these teams and these coaches tell you what you can't do. Make them pay you for what you can do. Yeah, you know, and for me, like, the Achilles heel was always the, you know, outside shooting and everything else. So it's like, man, look, I'm gonna lock in on what I could do. I'm gonna focus on that, and I'm gonna be a star in my role. You know, like, I had come to accept that. And that was part of the journey of, like, humbling myself, you know, not being able to do some of the same things I was able to do. So that transition for me was a little easier than it was for somebody like Andre or David Lee. And it was just like, man, all right, let me buy in. And then like Dre said, like, man, we would come out. I already had that confidence. So it was like, practice, we going at them, like we going to earn our respect. Every team, that's how you earn your respect of your teammates. I had played on 10 different teams by that time. So, like I knew, like I wasn't a name. I wasn't somebody that you get excited. Oh, we got him coming in. So I had to earn that in practice. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, Doc, he could play. He could play. And so, as we started to earn that, these guys, the starting five, they was already together 3 or 4 years. They had chemistry. You got Bogut, you got, Steph Clay, you got HB, and Draymond started to come to his own. Yeah. And so those guys were rolling. And I just remember the Achilles for Golden State had always been their bench. Yeah. I knew that prior year. I knew that, a couple of years. So I'm like, all right, if we come in, we do our jobs. If I come in, I hold this down while Steph's sitting down. Like, we got something. We was rolling. We was out the gate. We was rolling. The train had left the station. And then by probably December, we might have ran off like something crazy, like 12 games in a row, 15 games. I'm like, yo, I ain't never done nothing like this. I've been on these sorry ass teams. Like, this is new for me. Like, we might have a chance here. And so by that time, it was just like, all right, like I'm bought all the way in. Whatever we got to do. I was of the mindset of like, look, man, if we win, we all eat. You see what I'm saying? And everybody looks good. Everybody, like everybody eats. So, once I bought all the way in, it took me probably a month because I was injured, to kind of really get my body back together and really like, start feeling like I had some rhythm. But by December, January, like I was all the way in. And I think, looking at Andre, like he was starting to buy in, he was starting to get going. And then you already know once he lock in, it's like, we on another level now.
It's crazy. You went deep into that, but I always say it's kind of corny how you feel when you do buy in and it works out. And I think like the story you guys are talking about, there's a big difference between winners and losers because we're all so talented. It's just as simple as being like getting with the program. And, you see a lot of guys bounce around and join different teams and it's like you just never know. If you do lock in, figure out how to work together, there's so many talented players in the league. Like you guys went on a dynasty run. You know what I mean? I think when it comes down to it, obviously talent matters, but to try to work with it and the wherewithal to make it happen is a big thing, and that's a rare thing that occurs in the NBA.
And I want to speak to that before I throw it to you, Dot. After that first championship, I think we really embraced it because we got a chance to see the fun part of it, where it was like, all right, y'all superstars, y'all do your job. Y'all go out and y'all got to do all the interviews. Y'all have fun with all the other stuff. But we could embrace, like, coming off the bench. Like, we got a real rhythm. And we knew we weren't going to play, like, the blowout game minutes. And so we knew how to, like, keep ourselves ready. But we started having fun with it. And I tell people all the time, or I would joke a lot of the times about how blowouts, I would have the nachos order ready. Like, yo, the nachos in the end of the third. We always going to be up 20, 25, so get my nachos ready. Like, we would joke around with stuff like that. Or I knew the practice situation, the way it was set up. Like, Shaun and I knew to get our work in super early. Like, we come there 2 hours before practice, get our lift in, get our full workout in. Like, we did our work. And then that's how I got good at golf. And so I think, you're not understanding, how to make the most or embrace your situation and how that turns into, what it is. And we got a chance to extend our careers at the same time. Like, we were able to protect ourselves. Like, I didn't have to play 40 minutes a game and kill myself to try to get a win. Like, my body stayed fresh. And then I was able to, when the playoffs started, that's when we got heavier minutes. And that's when we were able to show, like, the appreciation came back. Because Bob Myers was quick to say we had no scoring off the bench. Yeah, I ain't forget that, Bob. But during the regular season, we knew when us two came in the game, these Clay's minutes. So we got to get Clay to rock. Yeah. These are Clay shots. Clay can get his rocks off. Pause.
And he was hunting.
Oh, bro.
And he was
an understatement, dog. If Clay lead with 15, you like, God damn, you ain't hit for hours. You're a disruption. Like, you was disrupting the whole flow if you only got 15 points. So when you go to some of these championships, obviously you guys won the first one, but what was some of your favorite series, matchups, favorite championship moments? Was it always LeBron? Was it going into the game 6 and taking out, KD and them? Like, what was some of the most memorable times of that Dynasty run?
Yeah, Cleveland, it was fun just because they hated us, and that city was some shit, and so even though I played in Cleveland, so, I got some love. But, man, OKC that might have been one of our hardest series. Like, them boys, hey, listen, man, them boys had our number. For real.
I believe
they was, they was switchable. All of them. I mean, they had big surge down there. It wasn't nothing happening around the rim. Like usually that was kind of our superpower in a way, right? Like when we go small, you got, Dre out there. I'm out there. I'm 6'7", right? Clay, low key 6'6", 6'7", right? Like damn near Draymond, one of the smallest ones, low key. Steph, obviously. So, but man, playing them, man, Russ, KD, Andre
Roberson.
Yeah, man. Like they was all, like them boys, they was switchable, long, athletic. Who was my boy? Waiters off the bench.
Yeah.
Like he could go.
He had a rough game
shout out
7.
Deion Waiters,
He should have had some
man.
shots that went in game 7. He had a rough game 7.
Listen. He could go, and that was my matchups. I'm like, damn, this boy, he about to go. Like I gotta get some rest. And I knew his game play with him, but man, he could go. So like that team right there to me was one of our biggest threats. And then obviously Houston, that team with Houston. Dre got hurt one of the series, but they was built to kind of face us in a 7-game series, right? Like that, you heard Daryl Morey come out. It's an arms race. Like, so he was building up, to face us. But, man, I enjoyed all those series. Like, I think Toronto, they had a good team. Obviously we was dead going in that series, kind of on our last leg, but, they had a good team. They had a solid team. Shout out Kyle Lowry. Like he was, he was definitely the engine. But I think OKC was one of our hardest matchups. That's probably why I throw out there.
Oh, I wanted to go back real quick. We got Tommy T. I wanted to go back and talk about when you start getting your confidence back from your injury. You're bouncing around from team to team. I remember seeing you in Miami. That's when I saw you. And I was like, oh, you back. Because Miami, I know how they are. They don't just pick up anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, they got to know that he culture. Like, they make sure you pass the test before you even sign the contract. And so that's when I knew you were back. I don't know if you remember. I remember running the court and seeing you and giving you, like, a big hug. Like, man, I'm glad to see you, fam. I'm like, oh, man. Like, yes. Like, he's back.
That.
And people don't realize there's this weird Springfield Peoria beef that I never had with you, but my friends was always throwing it at me. Like, man, these dudes down was at SIU Carbondale, Southern Illinois. I got a boy that go down there, and then you got some guys that were down there, and they ready to fight over who better. And they used to call me up. I'm like, I don't look at it like that, but whatever. But just seeing you, I was so happy for you.
That's a real friendship.
I was just so happy for you, fam. And just walk me through when you started to get your confidence back. When did you know, like, you started to find your footing? Because it was some years. Like, you had to go through the grind of it all. Most guys would have gave up. And obviously, for the way it to end the way that it did, it was like your true self preserved through it all. And I think that was the epitome of who you are and what you stood for, or what you do stand for.
Yeah. No, I remember Miami. That was man, I remember getting down there. I was like, I got to see something else than the Clippers, man, because we was going through. We didn't have a practice facility. We was working out at Southwest Community College in South Central LA.
Donald Sterling didn't provide the deal?
Stolen. Man, listen to me, man. listen to what I'm telling you. We pull it up. Guys just get their cars broken into, man, like coming out of practice. It was, we shot, like, we got the shower with the football team. You know what? I'm going to go to the crib, man. I'm going to take this pill. Like,
Really?
you know, it just.
Yes, bro. They had their own locker room.
I probably would join the local. I would join the local set out there.
That was our upgrade. That was our.
No, ET, the upgrade, like, we thought Pecan was bad. When they left Southwest Community College, where did y'all go?
We went to, what was that? It's
the Equinox?
The Equinox. Yeah, it was like the Equinox. It was the Equinox. It was the Equinox. That's what I'm saying. For us, it was like, that was an upgrade. Like, we like, all right,
they had, y'all had lockers, y'all had to shower with, like,
we had
white men?
we had a cubby hose. We had a cubby hose, you know,
That's
like
crazy.
you pull your joint out, put it in there. And then the locker room was, we had to split the locker with the members, you know, so it was old dudes in there. Hey man, good game last night. You know, how was it guarding Iguodala? Like, you know, like, damn man, put some clothes on. Like,
Bro, the idea that they had y'all practicing
wild.
at a community college, bro, they let anybody into a community college. Like what Chris Rock say, crackheads, strippers, they let anybody into a community college. Like legitimate.
I'm trying to
like,
tell you, bro, we was
themselves in community. You be the dumbest go to community college and get confidence.
Oh, my God.
It was an upgrade. Like, it was like, yo, I went from Central to community college, bro, to ICC. It was like, ICC was better. Like, Illinois Central College, like, was better than where we was at out there. And listen, man, I ain't throwing nobody under the bus. These straight facts, you know, and guys that came before me, they know. And so, you know, like, just not having the resources to be the best that you could possibly be was frustrating. Being that I was coming out of high school as a guy that was touted off potential. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
of who I could be. So in my mind, you know, like, I want to, like you said, we all got higher expectations for ourselves than other people got for us. Like, we demand a lot. So I wanted to be that guy that, you know, like, they drafted me to be. And when I got there, you know, to try to put the work in, like, even when we got to Equinox, it was like, you know, it's the gym closed.
No,
you know, like, you can't get in at night to get those shots.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
When you go to other organizations too, you look how they treat the rookies, and you like, whoa, if I had this much attention or somebody really cared, like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, even when I would bother rookies when I moved on, people would be like, wait, leave him alone. No, he gets to do that. Like, it was like legit somebody opened the door for you to be successful. Like, sometimes, even with the Sixers, I'm like, damn, I feel like I'm working with a 3,000-pound weight on my back. And when you show up and you look sometimes, like, no, you would love to have the space to develop. But at PCOM, I always said with Philly, we didn't have resources to develop. But it sounded like y'all ain't had shit to develop. You might as well play at Fairfax.
Bro, I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you. And, man, so going to Miami, like when Dre said he saw me down there, it was like, I just wanted to get to somewhere else to see what, you know, it was like to, like, okay, this the NBA. Okay, like, this what it's like. And when you get down there, Dre will tell you, like, you got to work, you know, and they don't play. Like, you know, you got to have your shirt tucked in, you know, your knee pads, they got them laid out, you know, your braces, ankle braces. And if you didn't have these things on, you would get fined. There'd be a slip on your locker. And I always remember they tried to fine D-Wade one time, and he went off. He went off on the assistants. Man, I ain't paying this shit. What? Y'all got me doing all that? Man, listen, y'all take that shit to Riles, man. Like, went off. And I just, you know, again, I just remember them being like, damn, they really hold their superstars accountable, right? Like, I didn't come from that world. I saw a whole different world, fam, with the Clippers, right? Like, it was wild. So going through Miami, I was only there for a cup of coffee, but like seeing the principles and seeing, you know, like how you hold yourself accountable, seeing how you work. That's how I was able to kind of, you know, build my routine and build, you know, what's it like to be a professional, be on time, be, you know, like make sure I'm holding myself to a certain standard. And then after that, it was hard to keep confidence. Cause just, you know, man, I was in and out the league, you know, man, I was playing the garbage minutes. So you got to do a lot in a little bit of time, you know, and it might be with a group of guys who maybe don't know the game the same way you know the game. So they out there chucking, they out there getting theirs, you know, and
or your loved ones see you in that position. That's what's tough too. It'd be like, man, I've been a superhero this whole time, and I'm like, y'all can't watch me play till 9:27. How we gonna talk about that? If we gonna talk about post game,
right?
Right.
Right, and it's uncomfortable silence. Like they don't know how to, you know, like they don't know how to talk to you after the game.
You're like, good game. Yeah, tell me good game again. I'm gonna beat your ass.
Hey, that's real. That's real live facts, man. Like going through what it's like. So, you know, like man, just try to keep the confidence for me. I got a little bit more when I went to the Wizards. I got a little bit more when I went to Cleveland with Byron Scott. But like, as you guys know, coaches, they can give you confidence. They can take confidence as well. And that was a situation for me where I played with certain coaches who, you know, like I just wasn't their type of player or their type of guy. And then I played with other coaches who, you know, like they respected my journey, my grit. You know, they respected what I went through, so they gave me a little bit more confidence. And by the time I got to Brooklyn, playing with those players, like it always helped, man, when your peers believe in you, you know, and really, you know, show you like, yo, man, you know, like you say, like y'all say, you know who you are. Like stop ducking. You know what I'm saying? Like go, you know, go for the smoke.
And as we close it out, you know, go ahead, ET.
No, you got it, Dre. Shit, I was about to close out. Go crazy.
No, you got it.
No, you got it.
No, you got it.
This niggas ate him up.
You got it.
No, I was going to close it out. Shit, Shaun said everything. All I was going to do is give him more flowers. Every time I see Shaun,
that's what I wanted you to do. Yeah,
Shaun. Every time I saw Shaun Livingston, I used to run right up. If we played, I'd be like, Shaun, what you think? I look all right. I look straight. Or like if we flavor, or I literally would come up to her. I just always been the biggest fan of Shaun. I remember when 2006, I was on a Rivals account, like as a featured player for like a month. So they're like hyping me up, and I remember my AAU coach was like, Evan's a new age, like prototypical point guard. Like the Shaun Livingston comparisons are correct. And I remember just being the happiest man on earth. Like, even being compared to Shaun Livingston, I was like, shit, I ain't got to really shoot a Shaun Livingston on shoot. Like, that's really what I thought. Like, would compare everything to Shaun Livingston. So, to be here, to be able to have you on the show, to have a relationship we've had with you, I know it's tighter with Dre, but I never take it for granted. And your story about what type of individual you are and a fighter you are and the perseverance that you had is nothing, you know, short and magnificent. And reading it and, you know, the wherewithal, you know, I'm glad I picked the right person to look up to because it's amazing you're going to be even more successful going down a line.
I appreciate it, man. It's just the beginning for you, ET. I always tell Dre, like, just I appreciate your radical candor. Like, keep you know, like, keep being yourself, keep talking your talk. Like, man, we need more of that. Obviously, what you guys are doing with the podcast, like, you know, y'all trailblazer. But, you know, definitely, you know, you got your ear to the pulse. Like you definitely know what's going on. And man, keep telling it like it is, brother.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, fam. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Point forward.
Hey, what's up? We back with another segment of our latest addition to our show, which is called Heard 'Em Say. This is where we comment on street chat, some stuff that's light, never heavy. And, you know, recently I was just listening to the Gilbert Arenas podcast, and he said some off-the-wall stuff. He said in order to get the defense better in the NBA, you got to get rid of all the European players. And the reason why he said this was because you go to college and you learn defense. What college do Europeans go to? They don't go to college whatsoever. They have no athleticism. They have no speed, no jumping ability. They are a liability on defense. They are 150 euros in the league today. Name the top defenders. None. Just Rudy Gobert and a Greek Freak. Other than that, they are offensive players. They're not defensive players. The NBA took away the aggression. They took away aggression to open up the EuroLeague. When they first started getting here, it was too rough for them. They didn't make it. Eventually, they softened the rules. They didn't soften the rules for the Americans. They softened the rules to open it up internationals. So when they say the Euros are going to run the league in the next 5 years, why do you think that? More threes, passing, cutting. This is not our league. This is not the American style. This is the Euro style. Drive in, suck in the defense to pass the ball to the three-point line. That's what Gilbert had to say. That was a lot. I was struggling to read it. I'm surprised he's not canceled.
It's the NBA they opened the game up, tweaked the rules so it's more free flowing, and so it feels like more people can participate in the game. That's why soccer is the #1 sport in the world. Everybody can play. It doesn't matter how tall you are. Sometimes it doesn't matter how fast you are. If you work on your ball handling skills from a soccer perspective, you can participate. And you see so many leagues coming around. And it's similar to the high-end sport of tennis and how folks have moved over to pickleball. Yeah. And so this is where we at. Go ahead.
Did you hear what Dana White said about soccer?
I did see that. If we said something like that, it'd be ignorant. We'd be called ignorant. No, go ahead.
But hey, the Dana White is just the standard to be like, hey, y'all, see, y'all just let this man get away with anything. Shout out to Dana White. But what I'm saying in general is like, he said something about soccer. He's like, people love soccer, but soccer is the easiest sport in the world to play. He's like, literally, it takes nothing to play soccer. Like a 2-year-old could play soccer. You just run, you kick the ball, and you're kicking the ball at like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know the measurements, pause. What was it, like 15 by 10?
What, that's the size of a ball?
Like the goal. Like how
the goal.
They say like when you're sitting there, people might not score all day, try to kick at that goal. It's not like it's a hockey goal where you only got like a smidge get in or whatever else. But I thought that was a unique take.
Okay, I'm going the other side of it. So, yes, I did see an article. They were ranking the hardest sports, top to bottom. And hockey was actually the toughest sport, I think. One of the toughest sports. Then you had like boxing. Golf was a lot lower than I thought. Like it's really hard. It's not hard to play golf, but it's hard to be good at golf.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think when you talk about soccer, to be the best of the most simple form thing is really a true greatness. Like you being the best at the simplest form of something. You being great at something that's just simple.
Yeah.
Think about that. Like everybody can write. Everyone can write. Everyone can put words on a piece of paper. But to write a book, to write a great book, you got to be different. And do it more than once or twice. Like Stephen King is greatness. And I will say, certain sports, you have to have a certain physique to you. And at soccer, to be the best soccer player, like, man, like you got to put the work in because you don't have to be tall. You don't have to weigh a certain amount. Your wingspan doesn't have to be measured at a certain ratio to your body. Like all those things come into play. And so, yeah, and why should we just beat our heads in, which is UFC? Like, what's the point? If we want to go there.
You're right. No, you're right about it. So, but further, when we're taking, do you think Gilbert Arenas comments about picking up the defense, do we have to get rid of Euro? Is that off the wall for saying?
Yeah, it's off the wall for saying we got to get rid of Euro players. And I think the Euros have made us have better gamesmanship. Because when we go over there and we get our butts whipped like we did last year in the World Championships, and it's really, they still have bigs over there. That is one piece of the puzzle that we're missing is like they are very skilled bigs. And maybe they can't play in our league, but they know how to seal. They know how to set screens at certain angles. They know how to dive to the front of the rim to suck the defense in for the swing or the cross-court pass. You know, all those things that, you know, we want to see in the All-Star game, actually. You know, that's just the way that they play the game. Now, we do tend to overcorrect ourselves when we're trying to open up ourselves to new markets. And let's say, hey, let's go over here and show this market we can play a similar game to them. So we tweak a rule, and then we tweak a rule, and we tweak a rule.
Yeah.
And I do think analytics is a part of that as well. And you've spoken to that since the inception of point forward in terms of a certain subset of individuals have never been able to participate in the NBA. You call them the nerds. And they've been able to say that analytics was the most important part of determining what success looks like and who should be on a team or how many shots should be taken. Because I still hate how many three-pointers we take in the game. Because when you get to the finals, the MIDI is going on what's winning for you.
Yeah, and that's equivalent to Jerry Krause saying that the players don't win championships. Organizations do. And then they ain't won a championship since 1998.
That's because he ain't there no more. That's what he was saying.
No, and I understand what you're saying.
I'm agreeing with you, actually.
We're just correlated.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
Point forward.
If Pat Bev get a ring, there needs to be a space for him somewhere, G. I don't know what it is or something. Bro, his energy is crazy, G. The way he carved out a 15-year career and elevating people is OD, fam. It's like he should have been out the league 10 years ago, bro. And when you sit there, it's not like a PJ Tucker. You like, well, shit, Pat really helping these niggas. Like, do you understand? Like, Pat is really helping win it. Like, it's like, bro, he sucks. He's knock-kneed, bow-legged, pigeon-toed, and he keeps getting better and better, G. And he's infiltrated systems and giving confidence, G. He got Milwaukee cracking, fam.
Yeah.
Cracking.
I'm with you. I'm with it. All right.
Point forward.
This is an interesting thing coming out of the NFL Draft Combine. And, they have all their tests. They do the 40. They do the bench press. They do the ladder drill. They have all these metrics on, how they measure, where a guy drops, where a guy drops in the draft, or a guy can increase his position within the draft.
They test everything but how truly large the cojones is.
Some things are unmeasurable or immeasurable, whichever word I'm looking for. But Athletes First Agency is urging their prospects to decline cognitive tests, and players are refusing to test at NFL Combine. So we want to speak on this with the Combine just passing up. The Draft Combine is, annually a place where NFL reps come, check out the cream of the crop, and players test their abilities. So Athletes First is encouraging their players not to take the cognitive tests. I remember taking one for the Bulls, actually. They claim there are inconsistent results. And here is the perfect example of that. C.J. Stroud tested 18 out of 100, which is very, very, very poor, but was still able to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Justin Fields had one of the highest scores, and he's a candidate to be traded from his team as they have yet to make the playoffs as a starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Also, another stat we were looking at, if your test results get out, not stat. Also, what they're saying is if your test results get out, that then can affect your future. Last year's Stroud score was made public right before the draft. Now everyone's saying he should have been a consistent number one pick after the fact. And then lastly, the top picks like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams didn't test because they didn't believe all 32 teams needed their medical records. Now, I know last year in the CBA negotiations, there were some conversations in the NBA about medical records and should they be made available to teams. And so I have some thoughts here and there on medical records. And to what extent should they be passed out and how many folks should be able to see them?
Yeah, and you're sitting there with sometimes too, you see a lot of these athletes, they're getting upset now because athletes are taking it in their own hand and being like, yo, I'm not showing up the combine. You see what I'm doing. Caleb Williamson tests because he's like, yo, you watch me play 35 games. This is who I am,
If we get to a point where the guys who aren't testing aren't transitioning well into the NFL, will that look bad upon them? Like, do you have to show out and prove if you're one of the ones who decides to decline testing?
I think it's a case-by-case situation. Like, when you talk about Caleb Williams, him not testing, that was the least of his concern when just 5 months ago he was demanding ownership of whatever team drafted him. So I think, like, you that sauce, like, Marvin Harrison Jr. is a junior. His daddy's a senior. He is daddy's son. That boy already went to the Hall of Fame a bunch of times.
Right.
What you talking about? I think one thing we're talking about, like, the numbers testing, of course you could test your way up and blow up on the scene, but if you're already up, the less they know is more. You know what I mean? Prior to signing that contract. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I agree with Caleb Williams. What's the point of showing up at testing if you watch me play 35 or 40 times at a high level?
I'm going to play devil's advocot. Go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry.
We're talking about this cognitive test or whatever else. Like, you look at C.J. Stroud, he's like, yo, I don't take good tests. I'm not a great test taker. Mm-hmm. It's like, one of my favorite movies is Slumdog Millionaire, because it's like, how'd you get the answers? And it's like, yo, that dude's calm under pressure because his dad went to jail at 12. Mm-hmm. And he, learn how to, raise his family, do what he needed to do, and grow on there. But it's like, this little dumb shit you telling me of what you think life is, that's all subjective. Mm-hmm. Or like, yo, if he shoots this, it's like, Dre, you shot 31% for a career, and then you shot 85% under three seconds left. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the bar. That's the bar. That's the segment right there.
Yeah, tell me what's that.
And one of my favorite movies is Blue Chips. And Shaquille O'Neal couldn't get into college because he couldn't pass his test. But when they said, all right, we'll give you $10,000 if you pass the test, he was like, that's easy. The test ain't the problem. Those tests are culturally biased.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about. Yeah. But I want to play devil's advocate. So here's me playing devil's advocate. So Brian, the GM for the Packers, he had an interesting take on it. He says it's a very important part of our process, but it's just part of our process. Really, the way our cognitive test works is not really used as much as an evaluation to whether we're going to choose a player or not in the draft, obviously. It's more about, if we do choose a player, what are the best ways we're going to support that player once we get him in the building. Now, when I played for the Heat, they did these personality tests, and they used the results of these tests as a measuring or as a way to identify how should we coach this guy, what gets him going, what hurts him, like what type of feedback does he need. And I saw the way that they coached one guy versus another guy, and it was very effective. So when I heard that, I'm like, that's a way to really dive deeper into wanting to be great and wanting to get the most out of your guys. So when I hear that, I see that side of it.
And that's a championship culture, because when you sit there, you're like coaching them the best they can be, because at the end of the day, I feel like Brad did that too. Mm-hmm. He literally, coach people individually and realizes it shows on the court. But when you go to different organizations and they say they care, it's like, how many people are really trying to care or do at that top level? So you sit there, like, I just took all these tests, you heard the background. We're in one situation when, whenever somebody found out something about you, they used it against you.
Right. Yes. That's the culture we come from. You're 100% right.
Yeah, and like sitting there and use it against you in your background. And he runs around, such and such acts like this because he doesn't have a dad, and did it telling every fucking second.
Yeah.
So you sit there, it's like, no, we're coming from you saying I play the Heat thing, and then I could be speaking. I'm like, nah, bro. Like, how I acted when I first started to like just the fake happy-go-lucky average. It's just like, nah, let's just keep it up there so we won't have people upset. But at the same time, it's like, nah, if you show yourself, you don't get to choose what the people do with the picture, Like, you know what I mean? My thing ended up in the wrong group chat millions of times. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just remember that.
True story.